Welcome back to another episode of Pizza and Parsecs. I'm Dave.
I'm Liv.
And today we're going to completely fangirl out on Birds of Prey. So let's start with background and spoiler-free reactions. First of all, this is a very female-centric movie. We are led by Kathy Yan, who is a fresh female face in Hollywood, and writer Christina Hodson, who brought us Bumblebee, which I personally loved. Liv, you'll be excited about this. She was announced for penning the screenplay for upcoming films The Flash, which is going to be Flashpoint.
Like the actual movie?
Like the actual movie.
She'll be writing it?
She'll be writing it.
Thank goodness, 'cause she was good. She did a good job.
Also Batgirl.
We're getting a Batgirl movie?
Barbara Gordon is coming to the screen.
What? Okay. I did not know this.
And Christina Hodson is bringing that to life for us by penning that script. Now, there hasn't been a lot of development on it. These are all just announcements, but based off of what I saw in this movie, this gets me even more fired up for the upcoming Flash and Batgirl movies.
Yeah, didn't even know those were going to come out. And I just complained about how there's no more DC movies except for Birds of Prey. So I'm excited. This is good.
Absolutely. Running down the list of these female powerhouses, we have Margot Robbie returning to her role as the infamous Harley Quinn, which we all know, but she was also joined by Black Canary, who was played by Journey Smollett-Bell, Mary Elizabeth Winstead as the Huntress, who reminds us of a friend that we have to no end.
Very much so.
And it was hysterical to watch that. We have Rosie Perez as well, and Ella J. Basco. Dudes are represented in this film as well. We got a Jedi in here. We got Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan himself. He plays the lead villain in this movie as Roman Sionis. You might also know him as Black Mask. The last piece of cast and crew that I want to mention is Chris Messina, who played Victor Zsasz. Now, of everybody that I knew that was involved with this movie, this was the one that I was most concerned about, just because I think on our last podcast, we talked about being spoiled by great interpretations of characters. And in Gotham, Anthony Carrigan plays Victor Zsasz, and he does a fantastic job. Going into this, I was worried because, it's not Anthony Carrigan. But Chris Messina did a very good job with this and played a very dark version of Victor Zsasz, a darker version than Gotham for me. Something you would see in the more violent comic books in this universe. So, with that, Liv, are you ready to dive into our spoiler-free reactions?
Yes.
Hey guys, Dave here, coming at you from the mystical land of post, where you discover there were things you wish you had said while recording. And you also have the power to cut those things in, so that's what I'm going to do. We were remiss in not unpacking more with the other characters in Birds of Prey. Make no mistake though, we thought all the characters, not just Harley, were great, well developed, and we definitely want to see more from them. We want to see more from Renee Montoya, we want more from Black Canary, we want more from Huntress. These are all damaged, complex, and interesting characters that we got a taste of in this movie, and we loved what we got from them. Together, we felt like they did something really special and empowering, but not in the in-your-face kind of way. Birds of Prey was an intimate, small-scale adventure told from Harley's twisted, hyperactive, charming, and unapologetic point of view. So, while we do touch on other areas and characters, in this episode we spend most of the time geeking out on what we loved about Harley, her character, her story, and development in Birds of Prey. Anywho, that is all. Back to the show. So, what were your general thoughts on the movie?
This movie was so good. Oh my gosh. It was just good. Like, it was everything Suicide Squad was not. And I was happy with it. Don't get me wrong, I really liked Suicide Squad. But there were some components missing of that movie that I just felt like made it a subpar movie. Kind of, it reminds me of like the darker version of Justice League. We talked about Justice League already, and my thoughts on how it was just kind of a surface level. And I felt kind of the same about Suicide Squad. I also was disappointed because Harley Quinn is a dope villain, but is always paired with the Joker. And when I heard Birds of Prey was coming out, I was like, how are we going to do this without the Joker? And I even told you before we went to the movie, I have not looked into who's playing any part. I did not look to see the character list. I did not want to know who was in this movie. I didn't want to know anything because I was going to hope that there might be a Batman kind of reveal or a Joker reveal, but not getting my hopes up that would happen. I am now getting into spoiler parts, and not because I'm just that excited. I liked the movie. I'll get into that in a minute. It's hard not to say anything specific about it. It was well done. It was everything I wanted and more. It looked like a comic book. Harley Quinn was dope. Margot Robbie is just the best Harley Quinn out there. Like, I can't even think of a potential other actress playing Harley Quinn. It was just really good. And then when we get Black Canary, I was kind of like, it kind of took me back. Because again, I didn't look into the cast. And when they were like, oh, she goes by Black Canary, I was like, oh my gosh. Love how they kind of roped her in. It was pretty cool. Okay, what was your reaction?
I also loved this movie. Like you, I had a little bit of reservations after seeing Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. In Suicide Squad, they made some choices. Mm-hmm. And not all of them really worked for me. I won't say that it's a bad movie. There are just things in Suicide Squad that didn't work for me. And as this is kind of the follow-up to that movie, I was concerned that we were going to continue down that path a little bit. Mm-hmm. Instead, what we got was a much deeper and well-constructed film centered around Harley Quinn, and it was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And what I loved about this movie, and again, these are spoiler-free reactions, and it would not be a spoiler to say that for me, this is like it's a more charming version of Deadpool for DC.
Yeah.
It had a lot of charm to it.
That's a good way of putting it.
The version of Harley that we get in this movie it's a different kind of Harley that we got in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I agree with you. In
this movie, you get a much deeper version of her, a much more layered version of her. It reminds me a lot of what we see in Mad Love, which was a comic book written by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. Later, it was adapted as an episode in Batman the Animated Series surrounding her relationship with Joker. Mm-hmm. And you get to know her a little bit more and how toxic that relationship was and the impact that it had on her emotionally. That kind of depth is what you see in Birds of Prey with Harley.
Yeah.
It was really easy to become emotionally invested in Harley's character almost right off the bat, because it was just Charm City from the get-go.
But not in the sense of like charm as like, oh, I could see myself relating to this character. Charm in the sense of you're absolutely bat crazy and I love it. Like Deadpool.
Yes. In the same way, like that charming irreverence.
Yes.
It was very easy to like her and become invested in her character and her story.
Yeah. Can we go into spoilers now?
At this point, folks, we understand that this is still a fairly new movie, so if you have not seen this movie, I would recommend hitting that pause button and returning when you've seen it, because we're about to dive right in, and we're super fired up about it.
But if you don't care, just listen. It's fine. It's fine. Okay.
You seem like you're about to explode.
I thought this movie was so good. Okay, because not only do we get to deep dive into the life of Harley Quinn, and we get this backstory, and we get this who is she as a person, an independent person, mind you, because there's no Joker, because we always know of Joker and Harley Quinn. This is the first time we get independent Harley Quinn.
In the DCEU, yes.
Yes. Now, we see in comic books and stuff like that, she gets her own character. But this is the first time, movie-wise, like you said, that we're getting Harley Quinn by herself. And even still, in Suicide Squad, we got a little bit of a taste of Harley Quinn, but she was still super dependent on Mr. J. That was her pumpkin. She was not going to do anything else. That was her put in. And she wasn't going to go anywhere else. Like, her goal was find the Joker, be with the Joker when she got out of jail. Here we get this independent, but we also get her way of telling a story. Not only is she centered around it, she's like pausing everything, rewinding and being like, all right, hold up. I got to explain this a little bit better. This is the story from this perspective, and like comes at you. And then you kind of forget this is a Harley Quinn movie for just half a second. And then she like pops up and is like, yeah, I'm back. Okay, let's get back to it.
She was a very jarring narrator, but I keep using this word, but in a very charming way.
Yeah.
And that's really the only word I know how to describe it.
Yeah.
This really is looked at through the lens of what it's like for Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Like, there are points in this movie when she gets drugged. You see this fever dream of a cutscene with her. It reminds me of something you would see out of Batman the Animated Series.
Yes. Which, the whole opening sequence, loved that. Absolutely loved the fact that it was animated. It kind of looked like the Batman animated series. It was so cool.
It really captured the same type of spirit that you found in Harley Quinn in Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
It had those whimsical devil-may-care attitude. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun to watch her narrate this in that way. Yes.
I do want to make a point, because you said something about the cutscene that she had. I found it extremely... It was kind of like a hats off moment, and they might not have done it on purpose, but like, how can you not do this on purpose? When she was tied up, she had been captured, it looked like the end for her. Like, they were about to kill her.
That's the scene. About? That's the scene I was talking about. It wasn't when she was drugged, it was when she got knocked out. It was that scene.
They're talking about the diamond. The massive diamond. She gets hit, and then all of a sudden, she starts singing Material Girl / Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And it's like all red around, and she's like got the, Marilyn Monroe look to her. If you're a big fan of Ewan McGregor, if you're a fan of him, you would know that he was in Moulin Rouge with Nicole Kidman. She sang that song with a red background and had a mole in the exact same place to kind of represent this like really kind of Marilyn Monroe look, and sang that exact same song. And danced. Not the same way, but if you pay really close attention, you can hear him singing it as well. And I was like, nice little hats off to Moulin Rouge, which was the start of his like singing career, where he actually did like musicals. I was so happy. I sat there, I was like, they might not have done this on purpose, but you can't, how do you not do that on purpose? Because I was sitting there, I'm like, Moulin Rouge, great movie, great homage. It was just really cool. I might be like grasping for straws, but if I saw that, I would assume a lot of other people probably noticed it. Which leads me to the music, but we can, if you have other thoughts first. The music was, this whole movie was, so good.
There are definitely some scenes that I want to talk about before we dive into the scenery, music, the extraneous things that made this movie magical for me.
Okay.
Magical for us. I mean, first of all, that initial chase scene with the egg sandwich is done in
so funny.
It was done in such a comical way, and again, Harley Quinn is narrating this in her own way, and as she's coming across every adversary, she gives a very short bio in her own words.
Yes.
And so much of this movie reminded me of things that I knew and loved from Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
And this opening scene really set that tone for me. Like, she's on the run from the cops and she's eluding them in the most comical ways. Everything is flying at her from right and left, and somehow she makes it out of there.
Right.
By the skin of her teeth.
But she lost her sandwich.
Yes.
I felt that was a moment. I felt for her in that moment. I know
you felt that?
Yeah, I know what it's like to lose a sandwich. It's depressing, especially when it's a good sandwich. She just wanted that hangover sandwich. That's it. She wanted her sandwich. It was good. No, I agree. It was funny.
And then later, after Black Mask releases her to retrieve Cass and the diamond, and she breaks into the police station.
That was so good.
Again, straight out of Batman the Animated Series. Just so much fun, so whimsical, so hilarious, incredibly well choreographed and executed.
Oh yeah, I want to have a whole topic on just the choreography alone in this movie.
Icing on the cake to all of that goes on in there, I managed to catch a glimpse of some of the writing that's on the gun that she's firing.
Me too.
It's called the Fun Gun.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
The way that she's taking on the police force, searching for Cass in there is hysterical. And again, like I said earlier, this is the more charming version of Deadpool for DC. It reminds me of when Deadpool is looking for Francis when he's holding out that picture. Have you seen this man? So yeah, it reminded me a lot of Deadpool in that way.
Yeah.
And that obviously Deadpool is so much fun to watch, and so is this.
Yes.
I could not stop smiling during that entire sequence in the police station.
Oh my goodness. It was so funny. And what I loved about that was you get this whole long, like, drawn out, she's pulling all these, you know, capsules out and shooting all the cops with these like puffs of color or confetti or splat stuff. And then we get the last shot. She's got one more capsule left, and we know because we've been counting this whole time. And she fires it and then is like, well, let me tell you how I get here. You get a cut scene of her being kidnapped, taken hostage. We get all of these cool little like backstory, and then we get to see like that final shot. So we get all of these like fun moments, and then it comes back and brings us right back. So we don't get to see the last explosion, which I thought was super cool. It kind of left us like, oh, we get more, but not quite yet. Yeah. I loved Booby Trap, all the scenes in Booby Trap. First off, was so excited to see just the amusement park, because that not only reminded me of the animated series, but also reminded me of different Batmans throughout time. I'm pretty sure Penguin in Batman Returns.
It reminded me more of the Penguin that we got in the 60s Batman.
Yeah.
But they're very similar.
They're very similar, though, because it just gave me, it took me back to that Batman, because I remember watching that as a kid with my mom and my dad, all of those Batmans, and just like, wow. It's an updated version, but it reminded me a lot of when that looked like the amusement park. But I really liked the fight scene in the amusement park in Booby Trap. It was so cool.
It was really cool. The way that they set the stage around it reminded me not only of Batman's throughout time, but it also reminded me of the kind of feel that you get from playing a game like Arkham Knight or Arkham City.
Yeah, okay.
Arkham Origins. It reminded me a lot of that, especially on the pier. It reminded me of a cutscene that you would get from one of the Arkham video games.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun. And it was so distinctively Harley, too, that it didn't really take me out of that to where I thought that it's just straight up copying the video games.
Right.
It was still Harley's.
Yes.
This entire last part was in an amusement park. And the way that they were battling each other between Black Mass Army and the Birds of Prey plus Harley. And the fight choreography was done in the exact same way. It was done as if it, too, was part of the amusement park.
Yes.
And it utilized all of these pieces of that amusement park. And that made it so fun and so entertaining. It was extremely fast paced with a lot of camera movement. I was admittedly worried for just a brief moment that I was going to have a hard time keeping up with it. But it was paced so well, and they paused in all the right areas, for me at least, that it was not difficult to follow at all. In fact, it was really easy to follow.
Yeah.
But when you're in a funhouse type setting like that, it can get really confusing, you know?
Yeah. And I think for me, when it's those kind of situations and when we get into those kind of like fast paced camera movement fight scenes, I'm always afraid that I'm going to get motion sickness, because I can't even watch the like roller coaster beginning of any Regal movie where it's like, right, because it makes me sick. And I felt the same way when they were in the evidence room of the police station. I was like, I'm kind of worried. Everything's moving really, really fast. The camera's moving really fast. I get sick when I watch these kind of movements on a big screen. I can do a TV screen, but when I'm at the theater, like, it consumes my whole like visual area to where I feel motion sick. But it didn't. It was so smooth, and the transitions were so clean that it didn't ever feel choppy or shaky, like if I were watching a race car movie or if I was watching a big battle scene with choppy camera movement. I'm excited to talk about the choreography, though. The choreography of the fight was, like, any of the fight scenes were so well done. Margot Robbie does most of her own stunts, if you did not know this. Yeah, as far as, like, her own stunts, she did most of her own stunts in Suicide Squad, so I'm going to just naturally assume the same is with Birds of Prey. She's probably done most most of her own stunts. She is absolutely insane. Like her movement quality and just the way that she can like bend her body, crazy. And even if she doesn't do all of her stunts, her stunt double just as insane and amazing. But there's got to be some kind of like dance training behind her to be able to do half the things she does. Like overall, her fighting skills, insane. The thugs fighting skills, insane. The whole Birds of Prey, like all of them were just so well placed to where the fight scene where they were in the hands, the circular hands part, where it was like they were trying to move the kid back and forth and like they duck and you see somebody else like doing something and they pass the kid off. It was just, it made the dancer in me very, very satisfied to watch that because I was like, this is quality fight. But then it also made me think of Wonder Woman because the fight scenes in Wonder Woman are just as good quality-wise and choreography-wise that I find in Birds of Prey.
I can agree with that completely because I definitely drew a lot of parallels between the way that they fight in Birds of Prey and the way that the Amazonians fight in Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And Justice League for that matter.
It's just good.
It's just really well executed.
Yes. The amount of training that had to have gone into that, it's just super dope.
And the hand-eye coordination, the creativity. It had a lot of creative ways to capitalize on the skill set of the actresses.
Yes.
Their hand-eye coordination, their flexibility, their fluid movement. Mm-hmm. It blended everything together very well.
I agree. It was really cool to see fight scenes that were not punch you here, punch you there, duck here, like you would in every other movie. The moment she found the baseball bat and she threw it down on the ground, it hit the guy and came back to her.
You know what this reminds me of?
Crazy.
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
It reminds me of old Jackie Chan movies.
Yes.
Where he's just utilizing anything and everything that he can, and he's super creative about it, and he nails every step.
Yes.
In such a precise way and executes it flawlessly. Birds of Prey is Wonder Woman Jackie Chan.
Yes. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and it's like, it's just really cool because you get to a point where you see like a superhero movie. Every fight sequence looks the same. Going back to comparing it to Avengers, every Avengers fight looks the same, in my opinion. Spider-Man swinging from a vine, shooting people in the face, and just being flexible and kicking people. You've got Iron Man, pew, 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 with his hands. Like, we have that. You have Captain America, I'm gonna throw my shield at you and catch it. Or get Thor's hammer. Spoiler alert, he ends up with a hammer. If you haven't seen it, you've deserved half spoils. But with this, it's like, she used the cell phone because the cop was like, give me the phone. She's like, okay. She tossed it to her, does a flip, kicks it mid-flip, and it hits the cop in the face. Like, who thought of that? Who was like, you know what? I want you to pretend like you're throwing this. You're going to do a flip and you're going to kick it into her face. And it reminded me a lot of the animated Batman series because that's how Harley Quinn kind of fought. Like in this goofy, silly kind of, I'm going to kick you and punch you wherever it's going to hurt, even if it's funny.
In the most creative way possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of that, there's one other piece of that sequence in the police station that I want to bring up. She's pinned up against a wall by one of those thugs. And Cass hands her a lighter to help her. And she just pulls the lighter up and starts fiddling with it. And the thug's looking at it in such a way that that's not going to help your situation here.
Yeah.
And she uses it to set his beard on fire.
I was just... so good. So good. I also thought it was really funny when she was hiding behind the stacks of illegal drugs. I won't specify which drug it was.
Salt.
It was salt. There we go. When she's sitting behind the salt and they're shooting at her and it's like coming down and she's like, oh, let's go. I was like, I died. I thought it was so funny. It was almost like, that would be a Harley Quinn thing to do. Like, oh, salt everywhere. Let's use this to energize myself. And let's throw it all in your face. Like, it was just funny. That whole scene was funny. The whole movie was funny. Like, even the serious parts, I was like, that was funny.
What's amazing to me about this movie is there's that consistent levity to it.
Yeah.
Yet still having those deep layers where you really feel for Harley.
Yes.
And you understand what she's going through, and you have that investment in her.
Yes.
When she and Cass are just sitting up there eating cereal.
Yeah.
And you can tell she's actually enjoying that. The betrayal she felt when she found out that Doc was the one that sold her out.
Yeah. Or when she lost Bruce.
When she lost Bruce.
I was so sad.
Which, love the name.
Sad. Oh yeah, well did you hear why she called him Bruce? She like muttered it under her breath really, really quick. It was something about some guy that she had encountered once before. You can only assume that she's referring back to encountering Bruce Wayne. I don't remember the exact quote because it was really muddled under her breath when they first walked in and the hyena is sitting in the bathtub. She said it really fast and really under her breath. And I was like, I gotcha, because she fairly confident she's referring it back to Bruce Wayne, which that was dope.
That was adorable. I loved it.
But when she lost him,
I know.
I wanted to cry. I was so sad. But it's funny, but it's true. When people die in movies, I'm like, oh. Animals, which Bruce didn't die. But when you assume an animal has died in a movie, you're like, this is awful. It makes me think of my puppy. Like, I love my puppy.
What other scenes did you like?
Can I talk about the music really quick? The music was by far the best DC music. It surpassed Wonder Woman's soundtrack, hands down, in my opinion. I know, and that's saying a lot coming from somebody who has their ringtone as Wonder Woman's soundtrack. Now let me clarify why I say this. Wonder Woman 2 has not come out yet. That is based in the 80s. A great deal of the music utilized in this particular movie with Birds of Prey was early, there was some 80s, there was some 90s and some early 2000s kind of mixed in there. All done by women, even if it wasn't like originally sung by a female. As far as soundtracks go, this was better than Wonder Woman. I did not say score. By far, Wonder Woman has the best score in the DC universe right now, as far as the movies go. Birds of Prey literally has the best soundtrack right now, in my opinion. But yes, there's a difference. I always have to clarify because the score, there really wasn't a score for Birds of Prey. Like we get a little bit of it at the beginning, some in the middle, here at the end.
So I thought what we did get from the composer Daniel Pemberton was good.
Yeah, I think what he did was really good. I think he was overshadowed, but you can say the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy. The composer of that movie was probably in my opinion, I'm pretty sure that all of that was overshadowed by just the soundtrack in itself because it's an 80s soundtrack.
So what we're really talking about is the music director for this movie.
Yes.
They nailed it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it just overshadowed the composer. But like Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't recall the score. I don't remember the score. I just remember the soundtrack. And for this movie, I'm not going to probably remember the score. I'm going to only remember the soundtrack. That's also the only thing that's available right now is the soundtrack. I don't see a score album yet. But I will be downloading that too. All the choreography. But the parts that really stuck out was when it was familiar songs like Pat Benatar or Joan Jett.
Or Heart.
Big songs came out into the fight scenes or into like certain areas. And I was like, oh, they're playing Barracuda right now. This is so good. Like I now will not be able to hear Barracuda without thinking of the fight scene in Booby Trap.
Or the fight scene in the police station with Black Betty.
I was like, first off, I sat there, I was like, this is the best version of Black Betty I've ever heard in my entire life. It was so good. Sway With Me, fantastic version of that song. But overall, best soundtrack DC has put together.
It was very well organized.
Mm-hmm.
They placed these songs in all the right areas for me. And the right versions of these songs, too. There are a ton of covers out there. And these were very specific. And they serviced the movie very well.
Mm-hmm. Just the covers that they chose was fantastic. But then, we have Hit Me With Your Best Shot, which I can't recall if that was a cover or not. It was a cover. Barracuda was not a cover. They actually used the Joan Jett and the Rippers version, and that kind of brought me back to just the reality of everything, I guess. Like, we have all of these covers, all of these really great songs sung by females who are covering this, and then all of a sudden you get Joan Jett, the Joan Jett, singing barracuda, and it was like, all right, now we're really getting some like steam and some stamina with this fight scene. It was really good.
Girl power.
Girl power. I'm all about these girl power movies right now. They're good. All these girl power movies are so good right now. They're doing great. It's because they're getting the right directors. I said it.
Yeah, Kathy Yan hasn't really done much before this.
She has a couple of independent films.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
And then she has Birds of Prey.
Right.
Which, to me, is so good.
Right.
And
way to start yourself out on the right foot.
What an amazing way to, like, break out.
Yeah.
Anyway, was there anything in this movie that really didn't work for you?
No. Everything in this movie worked. I liked everything in this movie. From not knowing the Black Canary was going to be there to the annoying end credit.
Yes.
For me, there was nothing in the movie that I was like, I didn't like that. The whole time I was like, this is a great movie. I'm enjoying it. Even the end credit.
The only thing that I could see that didn't work for me 100%, I don't think could have been helped. And that was that the hyena was definitely CGI.
Yeah, I don't think they could have done anything about
that. There's nothing you can really do about that.
The hyena looked exactly like the Lion King's hyenas, though. Bruce looked exactly the same as one of the hyenas in the new Lion King.
With Beyonce in it?
Yes. Don't get me started on Beyonce being Nala again. No, yeah, I don't know if they could have got a real hyena to play Bruce.
Hey, it's 2020. Anything can happen.
Yeah. That didn't even really bother me.
It didn't bother me either. It was just readily apparent at times. Like, there was at one point in the movie where she has her feet up on Bruce. Mm-hmm. You could tell that she just had her feet lifted in the air.
Yeah.
That was the point in the movie that I was like, okay, definitely a CGI hyena.
Yeah.
Which I feel silly for even talking about this because
don't feel silly. I think this is legitimate.
There's no way that they could have had a real hyena.
You know, right off the bat when she's looking for a pet, she sees the hyena and she's like, this is the pet, because there was an instant connection where the hyena also loved Harley Quinn.
Yes.
I don't think we would be able to get that same connection from a real wild animal. And honestly, I didn't even notice that her legs look lifted because I was too fixated on the fact that he was eating that person and it was gross. But I do have to say, I really enjoyed, with this being a movie with so much violence, there was very little blood, which I appreciated. Coming from someone who's slightly squeamish on the blood thing. There was a part where they were in booby trap and they were beating all these guys up and they take the mallet and they smack some guy across the face and you can see a little bit coming from his face in some general region, and the projectile should have hit the hand, and it did, but then the scene cut and came back and it was gone. But for a rated R movie, they kept the blood side of the violence way down, which I appreciated from DC, and I appreciated that they would do something like that because they didn't have to with it being a rated R movie.
I thought they handled for lack of a better word, I'll call it gore. Mm-hmm. I thought they handled that very well. They opted for more blunt force.
Right.
And even when they didn't have the blunt force, when Black Mask and Victor Zsasz are cutting faces off.
Right.
They didn't even really show blood in that.
Right. And that was appreciated by me.
And I didn't think it needed it. The gore in that wouldn't have really enhanced it that much.
Right.
For me, at least, because of the portrayal of those characters. The portrayal of Black Mask that Ewan McGregor has and the portrayal of Victor Zsasz that Chris Messina does. Mm-hmm. The way that they do it meant that was all that I needed was their presentation.
Yes.
I didn't need the accessories. Yeah. For lack of a better word.
And that's something that I appreciate because I don't really do well with those kinds of movies. And when they were cutting off those faces, and in my brain, I was like, all right, here we go. This is where I'm going to have to start covering up because I don't like excessive gore. I don't like a lot of hack and slash. I'm not a big fan of that. But when they didn't, and like you said, the portrayal of those two characters was enough to give me that satisfaction of this is an evildoer. Like, we're a big bad guy over here, but I don't have to see the blood. And then with the blunt force, again, all that blunt force, it wasn't, I don't want to call it an afterthought, but it was definitely you saw it, but it wasn't in your face. I just hit this guy across his face and he's spewing blood out of his mouth. It was just enough. Just a little bit. It just proves that movies don't have to have excessive gore.
At any rate, if that tells you anything, we transitioned into talking about what didn't work for us. and immediately transitioned back into what we loved.
Oh, yeah. Except I didn't like the ending.
You liked the ending. You didn't like the after credit sequence.
That's what I meant by the ending. That was so mean. That was so mean. And they knew it, too.
They knew what they did.
They know. It wasn't enough information for me to know what to anticipate next. But it was to know there's something to anticipate next. That's frustrating.
Why do terrible things happen to good people?
Harley Quinn's not a good person. She just does terrible things to terrible people.
Did you hear what you just said?
Yeah. But it's true.
At any rate, do you have any final thoughts on Birds of Prey?
Yeah, we need another one ASAP. Just for fun. We need more Harley Quinn movies. We need more Margot Robbie.
This movie really does have a way of making you want more from her.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely loved the fact, final thought, I loved that they added more of Harley Quinn's intelligence into this one. Because we forget, I forgot in Suicide Squad, that she is incredibly intelligent. Even though she sits there and is counseling the Joker and is being his therapist, I still forget that she is like PhD smart doctor over here. And then there were moments throughout the movie where I was like, oh yeah, you're actually really smart and you're not some like dumb broad over here.
You would get these flashes of intelligence from her in this movie when she would just casually drop her PhD knowledge on everyone.
Yeah.
It would just blindside you. Even if you knew going into this, like, yes, Harley Quinn does have her PhD. She was smart. She was a doctor at Arkham Asylum. You forget because of the role that she has primarily portrayed in this, playing Joker's paramour, essentially.
Yeah.
Slave, Harley Quinn, if you will. Any other final thoughts?
If you haven't seen it and you listen to all these spoilers, go see it. It was awesome. And the colors were fun. Like, that was so stupid. Let me just say, for someone who's colorblind, it made my heart so happy to see so many bright colors on the screen.
They were very vibrant.
It made me so happy. Oh, and when she sold a fanny pack, died. I was like, you would. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, listen to these spoilers. I genuinely think you need to go and buy this ticket. This is a movie that's worth seeing in the theaters.
I could not agree more. I really, really enjoyed this movie. Putting it on the DCEU scale, I would put this up there close to Wonder Woman. It's almost on par with Wonder Woman. I feel like I enjoyed this more than Wonder Woman, but I had more of an emotional response to Wonder Woman.
Right.
I had an emotional response in Birds of Prey, but Wonder Woman, I just had more of one.
Yeah. And because I classify these two as two different movies.
Yes.
They're both first place for me. Because while Wonder Woman is this incredibly deep, like you were saying, incredibly deep, makes you feel things, I really loved the parallelism of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the books of the Bible, to Wonder Woman. I could talk all day about the parallelism between Wonder Woman and Christ. Like, I walked out of that movie thinking to myself, if you saw that movie and don't know the Lord, you do now. Like, let's be real. But because this is on a separate, like, in my opinion, it's like a whole different genre of DC comic. And like Wonder Woman's this like powerhouse woman who's out there to save the world and do what's right. And because Wonder Woman is this like beacon of hope, Harley Quinn is, well, she's Harley Quinn. They're two I can't compare the two to each other.
It's really hard to compare them.
Yeah, so they're both, for me, first place DC movies, hands down.
And I think that's where I'm at too.
Yeah.
Because I got so much joy out of this movie.
Right.
My final thought on Birds of Prey is that this had that disorganized, whimsical, yet perfectly executed story that was just such a treat for me to watch.
Yeah.
And it brought so much joy into my heart. I was smiling for the majority of this movie, and I loved it. And like I said before, this has a lot of layers to it. Mm-hmm. It introduces, into the DCEU at least, a much deeper version of Harley than we had seen before.
Right.
it gives you something to hold on to. And I think that's what I loved about it.
Oh, yeah. Hands down. And for those who, listen or, are like, I don't really watch DC Universe, it's like comparing Deadpool to any other Marvel movie. Deadpool's on its own category. I can't really compare it to any other one because there's other good ones. If you like anti-heroes, this is your movie. Go see this movie.
Definitely go see this movie.
I kind of want to go see it again.
I think that about wraps it up for Pizza and Parsecs this week. I'm Dave.
I'm Liv.
And you can check out our show on bit.ly/Pizza and Parsecs pod or on your favorite podcasting platform. If you like what you hear, feel free to share it with a friend and follow us on the socials at Pizza and Parsecs, where we'd love to hear from you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Pizza and Parsecs, where we'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Why did you say it like that? I'm super grateful for this movie and your participation in listening to our podcasts. Thanks. That's what it sounds like.
That's the tone.
Thanks, Puddin'. That was funny. Thanks.
Thanks.
I can't say his first name. How do you say Obi-Wan's first name?
Ewan.
That guy. Ewan. His name is like the hardest name for me.
Ewan.
McGregor.
Ewan.
This guy.
Why are you looking at me like a crazy person?
Because I am Harley Quinn.
No.
I could dye my hair that color. It'd be pretty cool, I think. Blonde with some blue and pink. That's the hair for the wedding. I'll even get a heart tattoo. Say rotten across my chin.
Only if I can get damaged across my forehead.
Yes. Yes. But you also have to get a smiley, like a clown face on the back of your hand.